Yeah, I don't know what to say now. Hey, it's Richard here at Calvin Wazoo. And today is the 50-year anniversary of the Goose Lake International Music Festival, which was held at Goose Lake, Michigan, which was near Jackson, Michigan. And today also was dropped this. The Stooges. This is the concert. It's a live recording, live at Goose Lake from August 8th. So actually tomorrow will be the true 50th year for this particular performance. But wow. Yeah, I was 12 years old when Goose Lake happened. And there was all kinds of talk about it afterward. And I remember seeing then Governor Milliken on TV talking about, oh, we're not having any more of these kinds of concerts in Michigan ever again. And we're going to get to the bottom of all the drugs and debauchery that was going on at this festival. Yeah, it was something that left a really significant impression on me as a 12-year-old, wondering, what the hell happened? I'm still drinking over it. But seriously, this particular concert of the Stooges is really important in their discography because this was the beginning of the end of the Stooges. They had just released Funhouse, and basically their set was to, repeat the songs on Funhouse. It comes on this white, well, they call it gray vinyl, but to me it's kind of white vinyl. And it is by Third Man Records. And on my Facebook page, I have a link, the Facebook page for Calvin Wazoo. I have a link to an article, newspaper article, that talks about how this particular recording came into being, because a sound engineer who was there made a tape, a soundboard tape, and that tape eventually landed into the hands of this man's son, who then took it to Third Man Records. And then after, they decided, they worked, I guess the way it worked, I only read the article once, so remembering, but, they did all the sound work with the recording to make it sound as good as they could. And then that's when they approached Iggy, because they needed Iggy's blessing before they could release it. And initially Iggy was reluctant, because this was also the concert that allegedly had no bass. The bass player Dave Alexander was like not playing or something like that. But the truth was, despite for decades that was the story of the concert, there was no bass. Alexander was there, he played, but his playing, in Iggy's view, was so terrible that he fired him after the show. This is an interesting recording, all right? So this, in my opinion, is an amazing archival recording of the Stooges playing live. And if you're a Stooge head, is that what they call heavy-duty Stooges fans? Stooge heads? Yeah, I think that's what they ought to be called if they're not. But anyway, this album you will want, and it's a limited release. There's supposedly only 1,000 copies that are available, and it was released today, so check your record store. But even if you like the Stooges, but you're not like totally into them, and you're not totally into dirty live recordings, then you're not probably going to like this. And what I mean by dirty, I mean rough. There were great efforts to take this soundboard recording and make it as good as it could be. And in my opinion, they did a really fine job, because sometimes with soundboard recordings, you hear this a lot on bootlegs in particular, where the instruments are not equal. You know, some instrument is being overpowered or is completely absent in the recording. Plus, with some soundboard recordings, you get a lot of extraneous crowd noise, you know, from anybody who happens to be standing at nearby the where the soundboard is. And Goose Lake had like 200,000 people there. So this was a crazy thing. I mean, a little brief history about Goose Lake. So this was, after Woodstock, but there were like amazing headliners. And the cool thing is this album comes with this insert that has all kinds of information on here, about the festival. And one of the things it talks about, all right, here are the bands that were playing at Goose Lake: Savoy Brown, Jethro Tull, Joe Cocker, 10 Years After, Savage Grace, Mountain. Apparently, some guy jumped on stage with a knife while Mountain was playing. And Felix Pappalardi took his bass and knocked the fucker off. Something like that. While the rest of the band kept playing. Chicago, Ram, Bob Seger, John Sebastian, Alice Cooper. The names just go on. It's just, amazing. There was an incident that also happened during Brownsville Station's set. And the promoters wanted to avoid what happened both at Woodstock and what happened at Altamont. So to prevent what happened at Woodstock, which was there was no real control over the bands finishing their sets in their allotted time. So as an example cited in here in the narrative, a band that was supposed to start at 9 p.m. might not start until 5 a.m. That's how it was. So what they did is they created this revolving stage so that as soon as a band was done, and they limited them to just 45 minutes, as soon as the band was done, they'd say bye, and then they'd start rotating the stage. The other band had already set up, and then they were ready to play. And then after it was rotated, the other band could tear down their equipment, and the other band that was going to be scheduled to go on next could set up. And apparently that worked really well. The other thing, they wanted to avoid what happened at Altamont. And so what they did is they built a moat and a fence to keep the crowd away from the stage. And when the Stooges got on, that was part of the reason. Part of the reason was because of Altamont, but they didn't want Iggy doing any crowd diving. Well, if you've seen any of the videos, it didn't quite work out the way they planned. So anyway, back to this. Like I said, if you are a true hardcore Iggy and the Stooges fan and you just can't get enough of anything, you're gonna really dig this. As a sound recording, it's rough, okay? This is not like a regular release live recording. There are times when the sound mix will be at kind of like one level and then boom, it'll change really quickly. But overall, everybody from Iggy to the different instruments, you can hear everything. Nothing is getting completely buried. But it's still rough. And there's also a lot of like stuff going on between songs that most live recordings would probably edit out. But this is still an amazing release. I mean, the legend, going back to the issue with the bass players, Dave Alexander, is that the first song, Loose, he was like not in time, not in sync, because he was totally wasted. The whole story, it's in here. But yeah, he got really wasted, I guess, because he was kind of afraid of the pressure, particularly the pressure that Iggy was putting on everybody. He told everybody in the band that they could not drink and get stoned before going on, but he ignored those edicts himself. But there was also a lot of really bad drugs going around. And, Alexander mentions that as when they finally arrived, because they got lost, because they stopped and they picked up a case of beer and were doing, I think it was Tuinol. So they were pretty messed up by the time they got there. And then they run into somebody walking around with this bag of white powder, who someone just said, "Hey, you want to try some?" And they said, "Yeah," without even asking what was in it. Yeah, so there was a lot of stuff that was going around that people might have thought, like, this is from, the insert. It says, like the fabled brown acid at Woodstock, Goose Lake had its own pharmaceutical pestilence. A white powder masquerading variously as angel dust, flake cocaine, PCP, or even STP. No one quite knew for sure, but later reports claimed it was a horse tranquilizer, a substance that felled concertgoers and artists alike, such as Mitch Ryder, Mike Lutz of Brownsville Station, Scott Richardson from the SRC, and 3 of the 4 Stooges. So, it was kind of like a really big mess. And like I said at the beginning, as a 12-year-old hearing these news reports, I was like, wow, what happened? This is like weird. However, having said all that, I'm going to repeat, if you're a true Iggy Pop and the Stooges fan, and you really dig what they do, and I am one of these people, you're going to like this recording despite all of its flaws. And believe me, it's flawed, I mean, I've heard some bootlegs that sound better than this. But I've also heard a lot of bootlegs that sound much worse than this. So they did a really decent job, I think, in getting that sound to come out. But if you're finicky about the way your records sound, this is not cheap. All right, the limited number, at least the retailer I bought it from, we're talking $30+ for a single album. So it's not cheap. So you got to really love Iggy if you're going to buy this and enjoy it in any respect. Otherwise, you're going to feel like I just wasted $30 on an album that sounds like shit. Because seriously, you could have that reaction. But anyway, yeah, this is an amazing archival recording of an amazing cultural event, that happened in 1970. And, if you are into that era and into particularly the Stooges, as I said, you're gonna want this. But you better pick up one fast because, as I said, it's a limited edition, which means I'll probably sell out pretty quickly, and the price is going to start to go up just because of its novelty. Who knows what the price will do later on. Anyway, hey, let me know if you've got this recording. Did you pick it up also? Do you like Iggy Pop and the Stooges? Got any stories about the Stooges? Hey, leave some comments in the down under. Please like and share my video. Subscribe to the channel. But, hey, whatever your music is, always enjoy it.